Hi there, I'm Yashika Batra, and I'm a first-year student at Carnegie Mellon University studying computer science. Today, I'm here to talk to y'all about expanding your box. Imagine that you have a box. You can think about any box. It could be decorated, plain, opaque, transparent. It could be pink, purple, blue, yellow, and every other color in between and around. This box represents your learning. And regardless of how beautiful or intricate you may have imagined it, it has a limited amount of space. It has a set volume, height times width times depth. What does this mean? It means that as a student, we have to choose what we put in our box. And this is confusing for so many of us. Do we pick one extracurricular or the other? Do we pick one class or the other? Sometimes, as a student myself, I wish that I could just magically know what the best choice was. But unfortunately, that's not something that someone else could tell me. What we need to realize is the issue isn't with our box. Having a limited volume is not a problem. Having to make a choice about what to put in our boxes is also not a problem. The problem actually arises when we begin to compete. When it stops being about simple choices like what do I want to learn and what is valuable to me, and it begins to be about how can I be better than them? How can I make people at X college or X competition or X opportunity like me more? You see, competition shifts the focus away from I statements to them statements. You no longer make decisions for yourself with your own best interests in mind. And we can see the same phenomenon in competition-driven learning spaces. The focus is less so on learning and overwhelmingly so on competition. It's less on your growth and overwhelmingly so on how to appeal to others. I experienced this firsthand as a debater in high school. I too had a box, but instead of filling it with genuine knowledge and passion for advocacy, I filled it with statements like, "Judge, look at the sheer number of people we could save in Y country if they received humanitarian aid." I made sure to sprinkle in mentions of oppression and inflation wherever I could. I stuffed my box with casualty counts and national poll results. I filled it to the brim with information. But here's a little secret. Information is just that. Information. As a debater, I became an expert at finding world problems, but a complete amateur at solving them. And so every hour at these weekly tournaments I was attending, I forgot about the last world problem and moved on to the next one. On to 20 more minutes of preparation time to find 20 more statistics supporting 20 more reasons why I was right. Now, you may notice that I emphasize the I, and I know now that no complex issue can have just one solution, but within competitive spaces, we choose to boil things down to a point of false simplicity, oftentimes even into a false dichotomy. We split things into this side and that side, or my side and their side, and we assert that there is nothing in between. We truly begin to believe that only one of these two already limited sides can be correct. And therefore, I spent hours and hours on an activity without ever taking the time to truly understand the issues that we're talking about, to truly delve deep into the nuances. I filled up my box with information until it began to overflow. I never looked for real solutions because I was too busy looking for ways to win. Everything became about competition. But despite the fact that competition has both its merits and its harms, it seems like we all love it. That's why we cheer on our athletic teams, join activities like robotics and speech and debate, and attend hackathons and other competitions. That's why we write papers and enter them into writing competitions and make art and enter that into competitions for art. That motivates so many of the things that we do throughout our schooling experience. And in the process of motivating ourselves by competition, we also end up defining winning as intrinsically good and failing as intrinsically bad. We define complex issues as this or that, when really they're a mix of this and that and everything in between. In this process, we forget to critically think. Now, we love competition so much that if you look up opposite of competition on Google, the first result that pops up is from wordhippo.com, and it involves words like passive, lazy, and unambitious. Do you see a theme here? We're told from a very, very young age that competition is the way to learn. It is the way to be active and hardworking and ambitious. When in reality, the competitive advantage of competition is nothing. What if there was another way to learn? What if the opposite of competition doesn't necessarily have to be defined as bad? What if it's actually more conducive to our learning? See, by its very nature, competition decreases understanding. Therefore, it only makes sense to define the opposite of a competition-driven learning space as an understanding-driven learning space. This means a sphere of learning where looking at nuance and critically thinking are the only goals. There are no winners and no losers. Just how competition takes the focus away from what's best for us and towards winning, understanding-driven learning spaces put the spotlight on us and make us examine how we can improve upon ourselves. One great way to do this is to delve deeper in a field that you're interested in. Perhaps that's through extra courses, perhaps it's through research, perhaps it's just through watching YouTube videos. Working with an expert to gain a depth of knowledge in specific topics, spending time creating your own projects, or even putting in the effort to just read or watch extra material are all really great ways of gaining an intrinsic understanding for a topic. But what students fail to realize is there's many more benefits to understanding-driven learning spaces than just the lack of competition. The truth is, learning in an understanding-driven space expands your box. It gives you a greater capacity, height times width times depth, right? To learn. And from my experience, this expansion and focus on understanding over competing can begin from a very, very young age if students are taught right. I saw this firsthand when I led the technical team for a nonprofit that taught 4th to 8th grade students to code. I spent a summer literally seeing my students' eyes glaze over in boredom as we went through topics like web design, basic programming, and how computers and compilers worked. After that summer experience, I decided to mentor new teachers and create new curriculums. Now, these new curriculums were tailored to cover computer science in depth instead of in breadth, taking students through many various practice problems in Java and Python so that they could work through the process of designing a program, coding the program, and debugging it themselves. The difference between my past set of students and my new set of students: first, they learned in depth instead of breadth, and therefore retained more of what they learned. But secondly, my new students could apply what they've learned, and therefore they understood basic computer science concepts better and were able to build upon them in the future. Metaphorically speaking, my new students expanded their boxes. And it was clear that this was exactly what happened the next summer, because students were excited about CS. One of them even went above and beyond to code a math homework helper, which created problem sets of varying difficulty based on a user's grade level. This development and zeal to dig deeper is what I like to call real learning. What she did was much more than just the retention of knowledge. It was more than memorizing math formulas for an exam, stuffing national polls and statistics into our boxes for debate tournaments, or making mental notes of the differences between ionic versus covalent bonds. Although that last part might have just been me being bad at chemistry. It was more than understanding what a loop was and memorizing the different operators that Python offered. See, real learning is taking the information that was given to her and then twisting it to fit her own goals. But most importantly, it was having the ability to set your own goals. And that's key. See, while competition-driven learning spaces come with the implicit goal to just win, to be the best debater, the number one team, to get into the number one schools, understanding-driven learning spaces give students the freedom to take initiative and set their own goals. To put simply, apply the knowledge that they gain. You want to make a product that helps students with homework? Do it. You want to go online and advocate and fundraise for a cause that you believe in? You're free to do that. You want to write your own analysis for a research method? Go ahead. Understanding-driven learning spaces are not focused on winning and failing, and therefore they offer students the room to grow. Sometimes this growth comes through wins. Sometimes it comes through repeated failure and correction. It's therefore proven true. Students can expand their box by taking advantage of this freedom, by spending their time working on meaningful personal projects, on individual or institutional research, on specific courses that reach the very depths of their fields, or simply by finding a learning method that works for them. Because learning is freedom, and real learning doesn't teach you to be content with what you've learned. Real learning makes you question why. And perhaps most importantly, real learning keeps you forever a curious and wide-eyed learner. Your box, whether it's decorated, plain, opaque, transparent, pink, purple, blue, yellow, or any color between or around, your box always has the room for more. Thank you so much.